Welcome to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we're here to talk about what goes on in the village, the township, you know, those government entities that make laws and regulations that affect you out there.
That's right. And whether you live in the village of Oxford, the village of Leonard, Addison Township, or Oxford Township, these are the people that you elected, oh, by the way, and you will elect on November 8th, that is to say, and the commissions and the committees that make decisions that directly affect you, whether you chose to attend that meeting or not. And that's why we're here.
Yep. And you might want to attend because otherwise we look for humor. And guess what? That humor will come back and bite you.
You betcha.
It kind of bubbles to the top. So you just kind of scrape it off. But the other thing that we do is we...
Just like the head on a good beer.
And you would know.
Oh, well, I'm allergic to it. I can't say that, but
Richie,
you can.
You're allergic to beer?
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know. It's something we didn't know, folks.
There you go.
He's strictly a whiskey drinker over here.
Okay. Strangely enough.
Strangely enough. Anyhow, one thing that we do also, like I just did, is spread a rumor.
Oh.
And you do most of the spreading here.
Yes, but you pile it higher.
Occasionally, a little bit. But anyway, let's get on. Shall we talk about meetings that occurred?
Absolutely. What do you got?
We got two meetings that we talk about. One is the Oxford Village Planning Commission meeting, which was held on October 18th, and there was a special townhouse hall meeting with the village. And
That's
we'll
right.
talk about that one.
Okay, that was over at the Congregational Church.
It
wasn't
was, yep.
Okay.
And so you know about that. You want to tell me more?
I've heard about it.
Okay, that's another rumor, folks. No, it's not. It's real. It really did happen. Some interesting things for that one. But we'll do the Oxford Village Planning Commission meeting first. Now, you asked me the last time we did this, who was the new chairman? And that chairman is Gary Douglas.
Gary Douglas.
Mm-hmm. Does a good job. He's fairly new in the area as well. Excuse me. And to be appointed, you know, is rather a pretty good honor, I think, and he admitted to it. And he carries the meeting quite well. Now, he sits alongside Jack Curtis as a rule, and Jack, of course, provides some assistance and direction in the way the meeting should be handled. But Gary this is the first time he's been into a rodeo. You know, he's done this before. So
Where?
It's pretty good. I don't know. Take a note.
Okay.
We can spread a rumor at this point, but we won't. You'll take a note. Stack it with all those other yellow ones you have.
Same rodeo, different town.
Different town, yep. So anyway, they took a poll as to who was there, and Jack Curtis was present. Of course, the chairperson, Gary Douglas, Maureen Helmuth was present, and Bonnie Staley was there. There were a couple of, and of course there was a vacancy. They're looking for somebody, of course, to go on the Planning Commission. So if you feel you have the credentials or background to want to serve the community, you know, give the township or village, not the township, but the village a call and talk to Joe Young, and he can probably steer you in the direction.
And unless that no vacancy sign is out front, you can come in and put your name in the hat.
Yeah, right. You can do that. Actually, you would be interviewed by the Planning Commission first, and then if you get an approval, it will go before the Village Council. The Village Council ultimately makes the decision.
That's
as
right.
you well know.
But
Okay.
they respect the opinion of the Planning Commission.
They do, very much so. The Pledge of Allegiance, that was the first thing they carried out, of course, pretty common. They also excluded two members who weren't present on this board.
They excluded them?
Yeah, they were vacant, weren't available. Adam Johnson was one, and the other one was Gary Deek.
They excluded themselves, didn't they?
They excluded themselves, yeah, they kind of did that. But anyway, they have to approve it at the meeting. That otherwise, we'll lynch them.
Oh, well.
Next time they come back, we see them, to the nearest tree.
You just cannot not be there. You have to be validated as not being there.
Yes, you have to be validated. And that's what they did. Of course, they had correspondence was the next thing, which was received and filed, of course, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Public hearing was the whole purpose behind this meeting, as a rezoning request by Industrial Machines Products Incorporated. Now, they're located somewhere close to 21 Center Street, over in that neck of the woods, and there's kind of a mixed bag over there.
Is that down by the industrial park?
No, this is over near Washington Street. Yeah, there's actually a combination of some industrial activity in that area as well as residential, and it's kind of a hodgepodge, you know, between the two. Industrial was there long before any residential. was provided. But what was interesting to note is that, let me see, somewhere's, I think probably in the 1990s, somewhere's in that neighborhood, it was rezoned from industrial to RM1 and RM2, which is family multi-residential. And because the purpose behind that back then was that there was a company that was interested, a developer, in building some condominiums and some single-family or two-family homes in that area.
Okay.
And so it actually was not, they couldn't find any documentation to show that the Planning Commission had approved such a change in variance at that time, and that they felt that it was an administrative change. In other words, the office went ahead.
In any event, they got squatters' rights.
Anyways, they do have some squatters' rights. But here, squatters' rights we're talking about, and that would be the Industrial Machines Products Incorporated, because they've been there for a heck of a long time.
While it was actually zoned commercial.
Right.
Or industrial.
Yeah, right. And they built a pretty sizable building. Of course, they've gone through some rough times, of course, through the economic changes that we've had in the last few years. It's a tooling company, and they do work for automotive industry plus some others.
Okay.
And the gentleman who is the general manager spoke before them. And I'm trying to think what his name is. I have a note here somewheres. General manager was Navarro, Mr. Navarro.
Okay.
And he pointed out that since the 1980s, the business has been operational and functional. And in 2006 is the date that they changed it, from residential to
so now what do they want to do?
Now they want to change it back to industrial because he wants to expand.
Oh, so he has vacant areas that he can expand to?
Yeah, he has the property to be able to do this. He wants to expand the facility, and so that's the whole purpose behind rezoning.
Is it recently acquired property?
No, he's had this property, for quite a few years.
So technically, he's grandfathered in.
There's no such thing.
There's no such thing?
Grandfather clause doesn't hold up in court anymore.
Oh, really?
No. And if they go by according to ordinance and zoning,
even though he bought the property while it was industrial, and he didn't acquire it later,
they can't chase him out. The only way they can chase him out is by make an arrangement where he can be moved to another location. The expense would be
so he
so
owned the
high,
property
it
to
wouldn't be
start with,
afforded.
and his own property, which was industrial, got changed to this other classification.
Yeah, that's kind of like, you got a big stable full of stagecoaches, and now the train is coming through.
Well, it's
What do you
strange.
do with
It's
them,
just strange that they basically made an incursion into his property to rezone it, even though it was originally industrial and he was industrial.
That's right, back
Wow.
then. It went to residential, but it was an administrative move, supposedly. It wasn't anything that the village actually, as far as the Planning Commission did. So, but they can't find the records on it.
Oh,
Good.
so
Can you say
so
smoking?
it's still industrial.
No, it was converted to residential, family
Was there a
two.
document?
There's a document that it was changed.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So now he wants it converted back because according to the ordinance, he can't expand. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
All right, I thought you would.
On his own property.
On his own property. And we'll tell you more when we come back right after this. Welcome back to Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the Oxford Village Planning Commission meeting that was held and about a rezoning requirement. And we were discussing, the pros and cons of this being an R1, R2 designated area, and it's to be converted to industrial. And we talked about the grandfather clause, and more the grandfather clause, as I pointed out, is pretty well defunct in any court situation. It doesn't hold up any longer.
Yeah, it sounds a little weird, though, that I know he got a factory there, but now it's an apartment house.
When did they move in? I don't know. But anyway, they did. So anyway, they said, does the public want to say something at this point? And so they had a fellow Tom's Store from 21 Center Street. And he says he lives down the street, and he says his only major concern is noise. He said he wouldn't have any concerns about the expansion other than there's currently quite a bit of noise coming from that area and where they do the manufacturing at this time. But the manager, Mr. Navarro, he said that that is a consideration and a concern that they have. And they're in the process also changing to some new industrial processing that they're going to be doing with different equipment, which will be considerably quieter than what they're dealing with now. And they said that any building that they do, they're going to make sure that it's acoustically stable, you know, so that the residents around them that have their homes, they won't interfere, you know, with their everyday lives. Good idea.
Stable?
Stable.
As in, we'll keep the noise at a certain level.
Yeah. Well, actually, there is a requirement, and the code requires that from the property line, the noise not being any higher than 50 decibels. And it's measurable, of course, with certain instruments. So they will do that, and actually, the manager of this company said that they would be open, you know, for that, you know, test.
Is 50 decibels like 747 or an electric car?
Yes. Pretty much. But anyway, so that is the code requirement. So anyway, Chris Corey, the consultant, he made a couple of comments on this, and he said from McKenna and Associates, who represents the village, and then several other locales as well. But he said the master plan fits, you know, what they're doing here. So there's nothing that they're doing unorthodox. He said that on the south end, which is mostly residential of this area, he said would be a concern, of course, with noise. And that's already been addressed, he pointed out. And there would be some issues also to the south, which would be a noise consideration as well. Best location, he summarized, would be to maintain this location. Joe Young said that any noise complaints, he said, was asked by one of the commissioners. He said, have you had noise complaints? And he said, no. He said, we haven't, really. And not that there couldn't be some in the future. It's a concern, you know, that if you're going to expand the business. So no concerns there. Another question by Bonnie Staley. She asked if there's any new residential built within that area, because now that you're looking at advanced industrial. And then she wanted to know when it was done. And they said that the last construction was roughly 10, 15 years ago. And it hasn't been anything since other than some remodeling of some existing older homes in that area.
Okay.
So the answer to that, of course, was self-defining. Condos were built in the 90s in that area. That was the last time any major construction was made. A motion then to rezone Locke Street, which is located in Locke Street, 33 and 34 are the lots. A motion was made to approve it, and it was approved.
There you go.
It's all done. So they're all set, and they're going to be additional. They have to provide building plans, that kind of thing, of course, to the Planning Commission. So the process isn't over. They just got the initial approval to go forward.
When the Planning Commission decides to rezone something, does that also need the approval of the council?
Yes. They can make the motion to go ahead and rezone it, but the village council makes the ultimate decision on it.
Okay.
So it's pretty normal. It's like the Supreme Court of whatever.
Of whatever.
They control everything.
No.
Pretty much. As far as the money and as far as, you know, they do take very seriously the feedback from the zoning commission as well as the planning commission.
Right.
So normally it's pretty hard to kick it aside from the council. Council normally will send it back to the planning commission if there are any questions or concerns that they would have about the motion. So that being said, it's village council, pretty important group. And you're going to have new people on that board supposedly in the next election, which is coming up soon.
November 8th.
By the time we air this, we'll know who it was.
That's right.
And so,
And you can forget about that League of Women Voters thing. It's too late now.
it's too late now.
By the time you hear this,
He's singing
it will
the
have
song.
happened. It will have happened.
Right. So they said, is there any new business? Well, there is some. There's a medical marijuana, but we're supposed to have the Bob Davis here, the village attorney, to represent what's going on there. Actually, they're not going to make any motions on anything in terms of ordinances for medical marijuana until they find out what the state of Michigan is going to do. You know, they have a couple of bills outstanding.
Boy, they grind very slowly, don't they?
They do, but I think the first of the year is when you'll see things start to happen.
Hopefully it won't be as confusing as the first one they came out with.
Right. Now, there's been questions about using marijuana for not only medicinal purposes, but for recreational purposes,
Oh.
as Colorado does.
Oh.
And so there's that thinking back there, but in talking to police officers, which I meet every week, they don't like that idea. They say you take a guy with marijuana plus...
Do they meet you, or do you go to see them?
No, I go to see them.
Oh, okay. Just, you know.
But their point is, not only do you pull a guy over for being drunk, now he's on marijuana.
How do you test for that?
Oh, they have tests for it.
Do they?
Yep, they can do that. Yep. They got to take a blood sample, though, I think, in
Oh.
order to do it. But there they got to bring the...
Are there legal restrictions on that?
There won't be if it's legalized. I mean, they will be allowed to do it, or they will be allowed to take that person in question to the local hospital and have the testing done there. And whatever the results are will determine what happens to the
And
individual.
refusal is considered guilt.
Well, it's not a good sign. You might spend the weekend in the pokey, you know, while you decide what direction you want to go. It's hard to say. But anyway, any public content or comment? Content. Yeah, public content. Public comment. Stop giggling.
Okay.
None. Okay. Shoes are all polished. No problems. All right, we're going to go on to the next meeting, and that would be a special meeting, which is a town hall meeting that they had.
Actually, that was initiated by a developer, wasn't it?
It sure was. Al Martin, who's the president of Venture, an organization or a group of developers called OLHSA, which is Oakland Livingston Human Services Academy.
OLCHA.
Yep, and they've been in business, I guess, since 1964. You know, and all came about by the war on poverty. Was how this
Okay.
group came about. And we can talk more about that, about the war on poverty, when we come back, right after this.
Marine Corporal Patrick Gallagher came here from Ireland. Serving his new country was what he wanted to do. It was the Vietnam War. He was there. Funny thing about war, protecting your buddies becomes number one. On an early July morning of 1966, in a foxhole near Canlow, in came an enemy grenade. Gallagher quickly kicked it out, and it exploded. Another came in. Gallagher threw himself over it to protect his buddies. It didn't go off. He quickly threw it out. It exploded. He won the Navy Cross and later gave his life in that war. There's a new missile destroyer coming along. It should be called the Patrick Gallagher. With your help, it could be. Go online to Patrick Gallagher USMC petition to lend your support.
Welcome back, Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Dave Kenny.
And we are talking about the special meeting, or what was a town hall meeting, right? And it all has to do with a proposal for 22 Burdick Street. And let me see the other one.
Otherwise known as the village offices.
Village offices, yes. And the concept is for this developer, which is a non-profit developer, to build a 4-story building, not a 3-story, but asking for a 4-story building, and which would house senior citizens.
Oh, so just to make a definition, you're making it a non-taxable property versus a taxable property.
Well, actually, it was pointed out that the apartments themselves, which would be on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor, would be taxable.
Oh, would they?
Yeah, and they would bring in roughly, I think it's $10,000 or so per year.
Oh, okay.
But, so they would be taxable.
Even though it's a nonprofit.
Even though it's a nonprofit organization, but it fits a certain mold.
Oh.
The lower portion, or the first level of this complex, will house, supposedly, the police department and the village offices, where they now exist. However, everything would be brand new.
They're going to make it a 3-story building?
Well, 3, but they're asking for a 4-story building actually to
Whoa.
accommodate.
So
So
does Oxford allow 4 stories?
they don't, and they'll have to
Virtual skyscraper in our town?
Yeah, they'll have to pass. Yeah, they'll have to pass a variance of some type in order to get that approved if it goes that route. So there's a lot of hoops that have to be jumped through before they reach that phase. The concept sounded pretty sound until you start talking to all the residents that stood up. And there, I mentioned to Joe Young, the village manager. I said it kind of appeared as though it was a bunch of wagons with all the hostiles circling the wagon, shooting arrows at them.
All I know is that area right now, like on a Saturday or a Friday night, is a huge overflow parking lot.
That is part of the problem.
Oh.
The first floor, as I pointed out, would be the offices, police department, and so forth. But there also would be retail on the lower level. So it's
Oh.
going to be a pretty sizable setup.
How much of the parking lot would disappear?
A lot of it.
Oh.
Yep. A need for 2015-20 senior housing was proved, in terms of doing research. And we're going to get back to that parking thing. Property purchase is $450,000. And that's what the appraisal said for the property. Now, there's a little over 1 acre in there, I think, 1.7 acres or something like that. So it's a pretty sizable chunk of property right downtown.
What will become of the garage that's currently there?
Probably would be eliminated,
Okay.
more than likely.
All right.
May encompass additional housing capability.
Okay.
Development cost is going to be around $10.9 million to develop it, but the value after completion is going to be $8.7 million. So they're going to make a major investment in doing this. Okay. Apartments and business will be taxed, as I pointed out. Commercial would also bring in roughly about $15,000, except for the police department and the village offices, which would be non-taxable,
Right.
right? So an average Oakland County income, they want to know what that was, and it was $66,000 roughly, the average income for Oakland County. And they said, well, who would be in this complex, senior citizens? Would they be just local people, or would they come in from other areas? Would you bus them in, train them in, or how would you bring them? Drop from aircraft? They said they could be coming from anywhere. They said, oh, okay. So anyway, so that was a consideration. They said, well, what about the cost? What's going to be the rental for this thing? And the residents said, and they replied, well, the rentals for a 1-bedroom would be between $376 and $753 per month. And that would include utilities. A 2-bedroom would be, depending on where it's located, is $542 to $904. Again, utilities are paid. So those were the rental fees that they were talking about. Benefits to the community. They said, well,
These aren't subsidized apartments, are they?
no,
Just a age limit.
age limit. Yep.
Okay.
And
So it's not like a partial care facility or something like that?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not that at all, where it's going to
All right.
need medical facilities within.
Just
There will be a in-house, what do they call it, property manager, working with this,
Sure.
supposedly. That was pointed out. Let me see. Benefits to the community, more activity in downtown. Of course, a couple of residents jumped up and they said, well, what kind of activity are you going to have people with wheelchairs? Not much. Anyway, or any other thing, to go downtown, is with their limited budget. How much are they going to spend? So anyway, those were points that were taken. Increase tax base would be an improvement. Quality units, new homes or new development, rather than an old one trying to fix it up or trying to make it work. So those are all benefits that they pointed out. And they
I take it
said
these buildings being 4 stories high, will have elevators.
they will have elevators, so that's a concern too. No, they're going to have to take a stairway. Yeah, bungee cord. We just throw down a cord and let them climb up.
Oh, sure.
Won't work. Questions from the audience. Traffic study. Hey, have you seen the traffic through here and you're going to provide additional traffic? Are you people crazy? That was it.
No.
Okay. So anyway, anybody who's
We
traveled that
don't
road,
need anybody else in our town.
right? We don't need anybody
Is that
else.
basically what it was?
Exclude them. Anyway, who needs them? Anyway, parking spaces. They did discuss the parking spaces, and they said, hey, there's a problem now. And these residents are going to have a parking space for each unit. Have you ever been here on Friday or Saturday when there's no parking at all because it's all taken up by residents and businesses in this area?
One domino went down, and the other domino is, what about that parking structure?
Well, right. Well, you see the pitchforks starting to come up and the fire starting to rage, can't you? Okay. Joe Ferrari said the development will not cover all community services such as fire, police, and DPW.
What does that mean?
It means that there's expense to the police department coming to the complex and policing it. There's also an expense if you have a health situation where EMTs have to be called, which you're talking elderly citizens.
But that's what taxes
will not
pay
cover
for.
it.
That's what
well,
taxes
you
pay
would think
for.
so, but guess who he pointed out would be paying those taxes? You.
No, you.
Right. Leave it to you to move to Brandon. So anyway, so those were concerns and well taken by Joe Ferrari, who is the treasurer of the township, Oxford Township.
So how do they get out of it?
How do they get out of what?
Paying for those things.
They don't. Somebody's got to pay for it, so it's going to have to be in the tax.
But not the residents.
The residents would pay for it within their property tax and
Okay.
everything. Somebody has to cover the expense,
Okay.
or the township.
That's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah. By the way, I want to make a point here that it was indicated that both the township and the village has to approve this complex, not just the village. Okay?
Why is that?
Because it is. It's one of those things. I said so.
Okay.
There you go. That's what your dad used to say, right? Because I told you so.
Now stop asking questions.
Right. I don't care if the others jumped off the bridge. You're not going to jump off the bridge. Right? Okay, so anyway, so they did cover that. Chuck Snyder stood up, of course. He was there, and he pointed out, he said, what about density? He said, population density in that area. That's a concern. And of course, you're going to have to increase the tax base in order to cover this. And he said that I'm totally not in favor of this thing, obviously. He said if you look at the parking spaces, there's 73 spaces right now. He said I counted every one of them. And he said the building is 1,600 square feet, and based on the ordinance requirements, one space for every 350 square feet requires a parking spot. So he said when you figure that, when you come down to it, there's 46 spaces that are going to be taken up by this facility.
Reserved.
Reserved. So if it's packed already, he says you're going to have problems. He said it's not going to be something that's
So
going to be
how do they keep
suggested.
those Saturday night crowd from parking there? Is it going to be a gated community?
I think they're going to stack them on the other cars.
I see.
have no idea. That's what we'll suggest, is you stack them on the cars that are already there. So anyway, that might work. So anyway, traffic was a concern, of course. Taxes are a concern, that you folks not pay more tax out there. Fire chief, of course, was concerned with the EMT, additional requirements and manpower there. Residents could come from almost anywhere, they point out, so you have no control of where they're going to come from.
That's basically the situation we have right now.
Right.
For anybody moving into Oxford.
In conclusion, Joe Young, who actually brought this village meeting together, the village manager, he said that he will gather up all this information that he has, that you folks have delivered to him. He said, and they will review it. And he said, please put out the fires and put away the pitchforks. He said, and
We're going to try to make sense of this.
Yeah, we'll decide how this works. John Duval used to be the chairperson of the
He's very knowledgeable.
Planning Commission, very knowledgeable. He said, I want to see a list of other developers and developments that Ventures has done. He said, and move from there. He said, if this thing goes forward. With that, what's coming up?
We do have meetings, and on 11/8 at 6:30, the Oxford Township Board of Education will be meeting, and on 11/9, the Oxford Township Board of Trustees will be meeting, and unusual, but because of the election, at 6:30, the Village of Oxford Council will be meeting, having moved from November 8th. And on 11/10 at 7 o'clock, the Oxford Township Planning Commission, and at 6 o'clock, the Addison Township ZBA. Check on that one. They cancel like boom, boom. And on 11/14, the Oxford Township ZBA. So check on that one too. And at 7 o'clock on 11/14, the Village of Leonard Council.
This is Minutes by Minutes. I'm Elgin Nichols.
Go vote.
We'll catch you here next time.
Bye-bye.